Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to my channel. I am Monet and you're watching Life is Monet. I want to go shopping, but I don't actively want to spend any money. And I also don't want to add anything to my physical TBR. I want the feel and the serotonin of perusing shelves. And the last few times that I went to my local Barnes and Nobles, it wasn't giving what it was supposed to had gave. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of other like bookish options where I currently live right now. And so it's been like 4, 5 months since I've been here, and I've not gone to my local library. And so I figured now for my September TBR, this would be the perfect time for me to actually go to my local library, sign up, and get a card because I should have done that a long periodical time ago, but I did not. And also check out what my local library has to offer. Now, I am feeling like all the fall witchy vibes right now, so I'm looking for some like fall romances. I'm looking for some witch romances or witchy books. I'm also looking for some like coming of age, like single POV fantasy stories. I don't know what I'm in the mood for, but I want something that is very seasonal. And so like that's our aim today when I finally make it to my local library. Right now, I am currently doing stuff on my computer. I have some schoolwork. I have a meeting with my professor because I'm officially back in school again. And yeah, that's how that is going. But when I finally pack up and head to my library, I'm going to take you guys with me. Before we get started with today's video, I wanted to take a moment and tell you guys about Javi Coffee, which is a better way to get caffeinated. You can literally have delicious coffee in seconds. It's incredibly convenient. You simply add 1 or 2 tablespoons of Javi to water or milk of your choice. It's ultra versatile. There's any style coffee that you crave right at your fingertips in a matter of seconds. You can use this with hot or cold coffee. It's ultra affordable. Javi costs dramatically less than K-Cups, drip, or store-bought coffee. And if you use my code, which is listed in the description box, LifeAsMonae, you can save 20% on your order. My preference is to dilute it with water and then add a little cream, as you can see here in the clip, and I am all set to go. Be sure to use code LifeAsMonae to save 20% on your order. I am officially back home and so glad for it to be outside of that Texas heat. But I'm super excited for the TBR potentials that I grabbed when I was at the library today. It was just so therapeutic to comb through the shelves and pick up any book that I wanted and not be concerned about the pricing or how much money I'm gonna spend. My local library apparently has a 30 book checkout limit, and so I managed to get a combination of books for myself as well as my first grader because I want her to get into her reading bag. So I got some really cute novels that I want her to read or that I'm gonna read with her. So let's just jump into the books that I grabbed. The first one is going to be An Anonymous Girl. This is by the author of The Wife Between Us that I've heard very good things about, but the synopsis of this one just appeals to me as a reader a little bit more than The Wife Between Us. We're following Jessica, who decides to participate in this experimental psychological study which is being conducted by this Dr. Shields, and she thinks that she's just going to show up, answer a few questions, and then she's going to get her money and leave. The study also promises that her participation will be anonymous, but then the questions that she has asked throughout this experiment becomes more intense and more invasive, and she's placed in real life situations that are actually experiments that's being conducted by the study. So the deeper that things unravel, it becomes harder for Jessica to distinguish what is real life and what is being manipulated by the experiment of Dr. Shields. This is supposed to have a lot of like deceit and lies and to focus on an obsession. It sounded really quick and fun and interesting. I'm hoping that it's like a popcorn type thriller because that's the vibe that like I was going for when I grabbed it, but it does sound very interesting, and so I'm very looking forward to it. So the next book I picked up was actually because I was looking for books by Tamora Pierce, which is an author that I have heard amazing things about, and I wanted to read her and Mercedes Lackey this year, and I finished an entire trilogy by Mercedes Lackey, but I still haven't read from Tamora Pierce. So I was making my way through the YA section and I was looking for her name, and I ended up seeing this book that is actually dubbed by Tamora Pierce, and it's called The Girl of Fire and Thorns. The cover gave me like nostalgic vibes, and so like I was totally down for that. We're following Elisa, who is the younger of two princesses, and both of them are chosen ones, except the fact that she's never been able to live up to this potential or this magical power of being the chosen one. She's never done anything remarkable, and she doesn't really have a lot of faith in herself to be remarkable. On her 16th birthday, she is promised to wed this king whose country is in turmoil, and so he's looking towards her to be the savior and the hero of his people, as well as the fact that she's being haunted by creatures of dark magic. And so there's a lot riding on her ability to live up to her chosen one prophecy, and she falls in love with the king, and so she wants to be everything that everyone in her life needs her to be. But first she will have to believe in herself and unlock this powerful magic that is within herself in order to save everybody. It just gave me old school like YA fantasy romance vibes, and because it was dubbed by Tamora Pierce, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go with it and we're just gonna see where things take us. But while I was in the YA section, I did manage to grab two books by Tamora Pierce. I never had a series to start initially. Like, I know that there's like recommendations for where they tell you to start with Tamora Pierce, but like, was I going to be obligated to read in that order? No, you guys know me. I do what I want, when I want, how I want. And so these were the first books that they had in stock into a series by Tamora Pierce, so I grabbed two. The first is called Becca Cooper, which is I think this is like a later or like newer release, and so the series may be overlapping with like other histories that exist, but because I won't necessarily have that context, I don't think that is gonna bother me as much. And then the second one is The Will of the Empress. I think this one came out in like 05 or 06, so I know she's been writing for a really long time, so to be fair, both of these series could overlap in like this massive world, but I don't feel the need to read in chronological order for context. Like, if I'm not going to be necessarily like spoiled, I don't mind doing it. Even if I was going to be spoiled, who am I lying to? I'm lying to you. I would still do it anyway. So yeah, these were the only two books that they had. That was book one in a series by Tamora Pierce, and I'm gonna do some research into them to see like where I should start between the two of them, and that's probably going to help me to determine like which to read in the month of September. The next book that I grabbed was totally based off like just shelf influence, because this author, Jane Ann Krentz, she took up like an entire like half a shelf and bottom shelf of her own, and I had like never seen her name before, but she just had so many freaking books that I went to Goodreads and just seen that there was even things on her backlist that wasn't in stock in my library, and I just felt compelled to see what all the hype was about. Not that there was any hype, but just taking up a lot of bookshelf in a library, that says something. That says a lot, because not even Sarah J. Maas had her own like full shelf, or even Cassandra Clare. Like, I was like, okay, I'm gonna pick up one and see where it goes. So what I settled on is called Sleep No More. This is supposed to be like a thriller romance is the vibe that I got from it, but I'm not exactly sure. We're following three women who spent the night at this hotel a few years ago, and the hotel basically burned down, and these three women barely survived, and they cannot remember the night that they spent at this hotel or the events leading up to it burning down. And so they bond over that. It's a few years into the future. They're all very close friends, and they have a podcast where they talk about code cases or just mysteries that are unsolved, and try to connect with individuals who have like this lost night in their memory the same way that these three women do. One of the listeners of this podcast actually leaves a tip to them, claiming that he basically witnessed a murder at this abandoned asylum, but no one believes him because there is not a body, like there's no dead body around, but he's convinced that the night that he spent at this asylum, he witnessed a murder. And so one of the ladies that is a participant in this podcast goes to this asylum to try to investigate whether or not there was some type of like cold case or murder that happened. And she discovers that there is a connection between the person who tipped off her to go to this asylum, because he has a lost night in his memory as well, and it may be connected to the nights that her and her two best friends cannot remember at all. The plot is like a lot, but it made sense to me when I read it. I'm not hoping for a lot. Like, I don't have a lot of expectations, because like I just seen this author's name for the first time ever, and I picked between like 28 books that was on the damn shelf, and so we're gonna see like where we go. But like, I'm here for vibes. Like, it's giving fall vibes, and that's all that matters, right? And then the last one is completely like booktube influence, the same way that I was looking for books by Tamora Pierce because of how beloved she is. I stumbled upon this book and I almost squealed out loud because I was so excited. And that is going to be The Book of Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. I hope I'm saying her name right. This book is huge. It is from what I gather, like a YA coming of age chosen one trope with dragons. Everyone claims that this is like the pinnacle starting point for like fantasy, and it's one of the best like written YA fantasies. And because the book was written like so long ago, I do have faith in that, because again, I've read from Mercedes Lackey's earlier this year, and her books came out in like 1985, and I was just thoroughly impressed with how progressive and how like modern the content was and applicable to today it was. It almost felt like Mercedes Lackey's was like way ahead of her time. And the fan base for this series is like massive. People like swear by this. I wanted to buy like this complete bind up of like the entire, I don't know if it's a trilogy, but I know that this is like the complete edition of all the books, and it's illustrated. I wanted to buy it, but I think I've seen it for like $65 on Amazon, and that just felt like, I felt like a lot. Like, I wasn't prepared to spend that at that moment. And so I just kind of put it in my save for later, for when I needed like serotonin, and I was willing to like drop the $60 on that book. But seeing this at the library, I was so stoked and so hyped, because now I get to read it without spending the $60. And I love that for me. I am determined to read this entire thing in September. Like, this is probably gonna like consume my life in the month of September, and if I have to renew it with my library to make sure that I can finish, that's totally fine. But it'll also let me know if it's worth getting my own copy. I'm hoping that I love this as much as everybody else has. Let's see if I have enough upper body strength to pick up all 6 of these books, because they are rather heavy. Okay, so these are our 6 TBR potentials for the month of September that I got from my library. That is the Book of the Earthsea, which is the complete trilogy. Then I have Sleep No More, An Anonymous Girl, The Girl of Fire and Thorns, The Will of the Empress, and Becca Cooper. Wish me luck. Thank you guys for coming to my local library with me. I hope that I have encouraged you to check out your local library, peruse the shelves, and find some really good books. I will see you in my next video.